Okay, so we'll start with engineering mechanics today. Okay, this is part 2 of module 1. Module 1 part 1 was related to the introduction to civil engineering, various disciplines, role of civil engineer and infrastructure development, socio-economic and infrastructure development. And next will be part B, that is introduction to engineering mechanics, right? So we defined mechanics the other day. Who can define what is mechanics quickly? It is a study of what? Or a physical science that deals with? It is a branch of physical science which deals with what? Can anyone tell? Yes, which deals with state of rest or motion. State of rest or motion of what? Of a body. Okay. It is a branch of physical science which deals with the state of rest or of motion of a body. Now, the same thing when I say state of rest, when it is at rest, what it is called as? It is called as static. And when we are talking of a body which is in motion, it is called as dynamic, right? So overall, this entire thing, when we are studying about the body which is at rest and when we are studying about the body which is in motion, right, that all will be falling into nothing but the mechanics, and that's why it becomes one of the important branches because the laws of mechanics are applied in many of the engineering fields, right? So definition, at least you should know what is mechanics or what is statics and what is dynamics, right? After that, the other day we were discussing, there are some assumptions made always, right? So you all are aware of assumptions, right? What is an assumption? To start with any kind of solution, when I don't know anything about the solution, I will be starting it with a basic assumption. For example, when we take a mathematical problem of a age of a father and a son, right? There are numericals, no, in your high school you used to do the father and son. So they will be writing that the father is 3 times the age of the son, and they give you that data. And then what you start? You start with the assumption like that X be the age of the father, and then so and so will be the age of the son. So what you're doing the assumption there. So based on that assumption, you will solve, right? And then you get an output, and whatever value you're getting in the output it is correct only always, because when you cross check you have got the solution to it after starting with the assumption. Without the assumption you would not have proceeded. So assumption is very important, right? So when we are talking of actual problems, okay, actual problems related to engineering, then I have to solve a problem of engineering. I have to solve, meaning I have to do some kind of assumption. Without the assumption I cannot solve the actual problems of the engineering. So when we are talking of the assumptions in mechanics, these assumption, the term assumption is nothing but it is called as basic idealization. Okay, it is termed as basic idealization. Instead of using the term assumption, they use the term as basic idealizations. There are 4 basic idealizations, meaning 4 assumptions. This is nothing but the replacement to the word assumption. More technically, it is called as basic idealization in mechanics. Okay, so these are nothing but these are the assumptions that are made while solving the problems of engineering mechanics. Correct. So what are they? First one, particle. Okay, well, there are 4 assumptions, basic idealizations, and exam point of view, this is an important question because they usually ask in the VTU question papers. If you observe or if you check, basic idealization question is repeated many a times. They ask what are the basic assumptions or basic idealizations of engineering mechanics, right? So it is an important question. First one, coming to the term particle. Now what is a particle? A particle is something which may be defined as, or it is an object which has mass. Okay, it has mass but no size. Okay, I can define particle as an object which has got mass. Okay, it has got mass but has got no size. We cannot talk of the size. Now, it could be anything. When I say this definition, for you, you might feel a particle is something very small, but it has got mass, right? Generally, that comes to our mind. Now, I'll give you an example. When we have our solar system, say, right? So, in a solar system, there is sun and there are so many planets available. So, Earth acts as a particle because the amount of area that is present, right? With respect to that, I can always define the particle. So, in a solar system, I can call Earth as a particle because the size of the body may be size of the body we are not considering only, but the distances. It is involving distances considerably larger when compared with each other. Okay, so Earth acts as a particle. Or okay, first example is your Earth in a solar system. Okay, so Earth is very small, no, compared, or you standing on the Earth can be a particle. You have mass, but your shape and size and Earth's shape and size, when I compare those two, Earth is very big. So you become a particle on the Earth, or Earth becomes a particle in a solar system, or a bomber plane. What is a bomber plane? A plane which is dropping bombs, right, during the war and all. In a bomber plane, the bomb acts as a particle. Okay, in a bomber plane, when the bomb is dropped, so bomb is very small, no? So that acts as a particle, right? So example of a bomber plane you can always give. And lastly, another example I would like to quote is a ship in mid sea. Okay, a ship in a mid sea can be called as a particle because the sea is very big, enormous, right? It is very big, and ship looks like a small point over there. Though ship has got mass, and if I only look at the ship, it will have size also. But when compared to the sea, this size is negligible. So we will be assuming sometimes in mechanics that some of the objects will be called as particles. Okay, that is what example is Earth. Earth is not a particle. Earth is very big. But when I'm talking of an entire solar system, Earth acts as a particle. That is, I am neglecting its size. And by negligence or neglecting the size, when I say no size, we are basically what? We are neglecting the size. By neglecting the size, we are not giving up the accuracy. That is, whatever we are assuming and we are getting the solution to it, the solution is accurate. It is not wrong. So we are not giving up the accuracy of the material by going ahead with this particular assumption, that is particle, any object which has got mass but no size. Okay, important it is. Please try and understand, and you have to give examples. So you can give example as Earth in a solar system, a ship in a mid of sea, bomber plane example also can be given. Clear with what is first one, that is particle? Any doubt with particle? I either want you to say yes, no, or you will be typing it in the message box. Okay. Next one. Second, first assumption is done, that is particle. Second assumption is something called as continuum. Can anyone tell me what is continuum? Continuum, that is. What is continuum? Can anyone tell me? Or can you guess? Okay. Now you all are aware that any body we consider, you take any object, okay? You take any object, this object is divided into small particles, right? Which are not visible by naked eye. If I break it into small particles, right? It is a combination of several particles. And each particle is subdivided into what? It has got molecules, then it has got atoms, then it has got electrons, right? So a object, when it is subdivided into smaller and smaller particles, it will be later divided into molecules, atoms, electrons, right? Which are very small, which are not visible by the naked eye. Now, these all together are forming that particular body. Now, when I'm studying this object and say I'm applying a load to this object at this point, right? So, generally, you look at it like this. If I'm applying load at this point, that means these particles are undergoing more amount of deformation because of the load in reality, if you check. see when you try to put a force on your hand at this point. So the force application is here more, not over here, right? Application of force is here more. So these particles at this regions are going to be, deformation takes place more compared to the other part. But I cannot study that because I cannot study individual particle here. I cannot go ahead with the study of individual particles, small particles, though each of it has its own behavior. So that time what I will assume that I will assume that this is a continuum. What is continuum? It is a continuous distribution of matter. Okay, continuous distribution of matter, meaning I'm assuming that this whole thing is one unit, and whatever force is applied, all the particles are giving deformation under that force. Okay, so that is the assumption, that is continuum. Wherein we know that every body is consisting of several particles and each particle is divided into molecules, atom, electrons, etc. It is not possible to solve the engineering problem by treating them individually, okay, or discrete particles. So the body is assumed to be the continuous distribution of matter. In other words, it can be called as continuum. Okay, so we assume in mechanics that it is a continuum, that is, it is a continuous distribution of matter and all the elements will act together. So that is what is continuum. Okay, coming to next one, third one, third basic idealization, that is a rigid body. A rigid body. Now, what is a rigid body? Consider a body, and I will mark 2 points A and B over it. Okay. And after marking the 2 points A and B, I will apply some forces over that body. That is F1, F2, F3, and F4. Correct? Now, after the application of these forces, there will be some change happening in the body. So, after the application of force also, if the distance between A and B, now I'll write A dash B dash. Okay. If the distance between A and B is the same as the distance between A dash and B dash, that tells me that there was no change in the body. Okay. So such a body is called as a rigid body. I repeat again. Example for this is we consider a body and we mark 2 points on a body, that is A and B. The distance between A and B we know, right? Then we apply the forces. After the application of the forces, we assume it is understood that there would be some deformation, expecting some deformation. So even after the application of the forces, if I measure the distance between the points A dash B dash, it would be same as the distance between A and B. So if this is happening, that is the distance between two relative points is the same even after application of the force, then it is called as a rigid body. This example, you have to write it in the technical form. So when I'm writing in the technical form, I will write what? A rigid body is defined as a body in which the relative positions of 2 points will not be changed or will not be altered even after application of the forces. Such a body is called as a rigid body. Okay, so this is the third assumption, that is, or basic idealization, that is rigid body. And then fourth one we have, it's called as a point force. Fourth assumption is a point force. What is a point force? A force acting at a point. A force acting at a point is called as a point force. Now, for example, say there is a ladder which is placed against a wall and on a floor. Okay, a person is standing on the ladder. His weight, say, 70 kgs. Right, a person is standing on the ladder. So now, in this case, this 70 kg is a point force. Okay, why it is a point force? 70 kg is getting transferred to the ladder through his 2 feet. Agree? And there is an area of contact also. But that area of contact is very small compared to the length of the ladder or the entire wall and the floor. So this area where the load is going is very small. So I will be neglecting this area of contact, and I will be assuming that it is acting at a single point, and hence I call it as a point force. So this is also an assumption. In reality, if you see 2 feet, so the way the 70 kg is transferred through the 2 feet on the ladder, correct? In reality. both the feet will be contributing, and then it is that load is passed on to the ladder. But when I look at the entire dimensions of the room and the ladder, that time I can assume when I'm doing the calculations that 70 kg is acting at a single point at one point, and I'm neglecting that contact area. Okay, that is a point force. Because when I define point force, if I say forces acting at a point, becomes very simple. But here in reality, it is not acting at a point. So this example is very important, or you understanding the example is also very important. So in some cases, in civil engineering, when we are dealing with loads that are coming on the structure, though there will be a point or area of contact for the load to be acting on the structure, but compared to the dimensions of the structure, that area of contact is very small, and hence we assume that the load is, or the force is acting at a point, and we analyze that particular element of the structure, whether it is a beam or a column. We do the analysis assuming that it is the load is acting at a point. So this is an assumption that is made.
Ma'am, screen is not visible.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
I'm so sorry, there was a power cut off. Where did it stop actually? What was the last thing when I went offline?
Ma'am, load on columns.
Wooden columns. Okay, fine. So in reality, it won't be acting at a single point, but we assume that it is acting at a single point. Okay, so that is about the point force, and these are all what the basic assumptions. So what are the basic assumptions now? Can we just recall them? What
Particle.
Yeah, first one is particle. Particle, what you will remember, the terminology is related to particle, something which has got mass, but no size. Okay, remember particle as something which is object which has got mass and no size. Give any examples related to this. That is, you can give ship in the mid of sea, Earth in a solar system, etc. And there, the size, when we are giving examples like Earth in a solar system and all, the size is present, but it is neglected based on the overall dimensioning, right? Or the larger area that is involved. Second one was what? Continuum.
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 Okay. A continuum is something wherein we are assuming that in a body there is continuous distribution of matter, or it is continuous distribution of matter, and we will be assuming that all the particles will be acting together. So that is continuum, right? Third one,
Rigid body.
yes, rigid body. Rigid body, how you define rigid body? You can draw that example of two rigid bodies and show A and B also. And when you're writing the definition, you write when the distance between two relative points will remain same even after the application of the load. That is called as a rigid body. That is, there is no deformation taking place in the body. And fourth one becomes your point
0.4.
force.
0.4.
That is, force is acting at a single point. In reality, this might not be possible, but the contact area would be neglected. Here, you can give the example of you can draw, simply you can draw a ladder and you can show some weight, 70 kg and all, and say that 70 kilonewton or 70 kg is the weight of a person standing on the ladder is assumed to be a point force where area of contact is neglected. So these are the four basic idealizations of mechanics, meaning these four will be always used in engineering mechanics when they are trying to solve a numerical or when they are trying to get solution to a problem. Clear? And when we assume, these are idealizations are what? There are assumptions. On assumption or on assuming, we are not going to change, not changing what? The accuracy. Okay, we are not giving up the accuracy of the value. Accuracy means what? How, to what extent the value is correct, or to what extent the solution is correct. So that is accuracy. So we are not giving up the accuracy by assuming these four, or assuming or using the basic idealizations in finding the solution. Clear? Any doubt with these four?
No,
Right.
ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay.
No,
We
ma'am.
will take up next point. You all are all aware of this, so let's see how much you remember. We will be discussing about Newton's laws. Newton's laws of motion. How many of you remember? How many laws are there?
3 laws.
3.
4.
Three, four. Three are usually what you all are using. Fourth one is law of gravitation, right? Okay. So there is no name. Directly I will write Newton's first law. Can anyone tell me what is Newton's first law? If you know, you quickly tell me. I'll be very happy.
Every body remains in the state of rest until an external force acts on it.
Everybody, correct, absolutely right. Everybody remains in a state of rest. Okay, state of rest or motion, both. If it is already in motion, it will be in motion only. If it is at rest, it will be at rest. So everybody remains in a state of rest or in motion until
A force
an
acts on
external, yes, external force acts on it. Now, when you all were doing, or when you were studying this, it was very difficult, no, for you to remember this particular, because especially if you remember the statement, how you used to by heart it. It was like this. It states that every body continues to be in a state of rest or of uniform motion in a straight line unless it is compelled by an external agency acting on it. Right? Something like this it was. So you were always, many of you, I suppose, not all, if not all, there would be at least 70% of the students who would find it difficult to recall this. Okay, I will give you a simple example now to remember Newton's first law. Okay, say there's a person a student, will take it. There's a student A, and he finished his classes, or there is a break now, right? There's a break of half an hour. Student A plans to go to library. Student A plans to go to library. So he will start walking towards the library. So this is a straight road which is going to the library. And somewhere here is your canteen or your cafe. Say. Okay. So person A starts to go towards the library. That is, either he is at rest, that is he's thinking he'll go to library, or in motion, that is he starts walking towards the library. Okay, a body is in state of rest or in motion. His mind may he has to reach the library. Yeah, until his friend comes. B. This fellow comes and tells him, "Chalo, let's not go to library. Let's go to canteen." Okay. So this person B comes and says, he comes and interrupts him. That is either here he interrupts him, that is when he's at rest, or here when he's in motion, he comes and interrupts him saying that, let's not go to library, let's go to canteen. Okay, this much is your Newton's first law. When he comes and interrupts. When he interrupts, then we will see what will happen next, right? So a body remains in state of rest or in motion until an external agency, this B is the external agency, who comes and acts on it. So this is your Newton's first law, right? Who can tell me Newton's second law?
F is equals to ma.
F equal to ma, great. Statement wise,
Force is equal to mass time acceleration.
that is F is equal to ma only. Rate of change of momentum. I want that definition.
Rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force.
Yes, it states that rate of change of momentum, okay, is directly proportional to the applied force. Again, how many of you have understood the meaning of this? Meaning, this momentum or motion will change based or is directly proportional to the applied force. Come back to our canteen example. He was supposed to go to library. External agency came and put in his mind that we will go to canteen. Now this option, this A fellow has got two options. One, he will go to the canteen, or one, he will go to the library, right? So if my video was stuck. Okay, so where was I? Rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force. So come back to our canteen example. If this person A, now after he coming and telling him, let's go to canteen and not to library, he will have two options. One, he will say, no, I will go to library. Or he'll say, okay, chal, let's go to canteen. If he says, let's go to canteen, that is your second Newton's law. That is, the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force. Applied force is who? This fellow who came and told him we'll go to canteen, and this fellow who was going to library, he changed his mindset and he said, okay, let's go to the applied force. What he's telling. So that is your Newton's second law, wherein he agrees to go to the canteen. Clear? I think. Okay. So rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force is your second law. Remember this example, you will be always be able to write the definition. Third law, I need not explain only, right? That is, for every action, there is equal and opposite reaction. All of you are aware of that. There are n number of examples for that also. But Newton's first and second law, you can remember in this manner if you are comfortable with it. But definitions when you are writing, please do not give a canteen and library definition. Write the definition as they are. Rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to applied force. Meaning, whatever direction the force is applied, in that direction only the motion happens. Clear? So I think I'll stop by this. 10:24 it is. Sorry for the inconvenience. There was lots of network problem today.